Welcome to another video on Scuba Continuous Intelligence. In this video, I'm going to be training on sessions and how to create them and how to use them inside of different Explore queries. If you're watching this video and you haven't watched our prerequisite video on flows, I suggest you pause the video and go back and watch that so you can learn the basics on what flows are and how to build them. So in this video, I'm going to deconstruct how Scuba thinks about flows and how sessions relate to them. So just like I showed in the other video, inside of a flow, you can define a sequence of steps and then determine global rules which define the criteria for each session that a user will initiate inside of your application. So if you use an Amazon example, users will land on their home page, go do a bunch of different things. They'll search for products, go to product description pages, add items to cart and purchase, and they'll do those sequences of events with different time between each and every step. So for example, it could take me a few seconds where somebody else could take a few minutes to eventually choose a product that they want to see the product description page for, etc. But if you want to define sessions because you care about users that are actively engaged inside of your application, where there's certain time-related criteria that defines that session, you're going to want to use these global rules down here. So what I mean by that is if I were to land on the Amazon homepage and then execute a search for something, and then get up from my computer, go downstairs, cook dinner, and then come back 45 minutes later, choose one of the products that I searched for, and then maybe add it to cart, and then purchase it 5 days later, you would have 3 discrete sessions that occurred in that example if you were to set the global rules here to end flow from inactivity of 30 minutes. And so the reason for that is that I initiated my first session by landing on the home page, and then I walked away from the computer and didn't generate another event for greater than 30 minutes. So in that instance, you would be a user that landed on home page and then bounced from that session because you didn't generate another event within this time-related criteria. And then if I came back, chose my product, maybe chose a few other products, added them to cart, and I did that within maybe a 10 or 15 minute time range, and then again walked away from the computer and didn't come back to Amazon for 5 days, that would end that session because our rules say end the session from 30 minutes of inactivity. And then in my purchase event, maybe I just landed on Amazon for the 3rd time and then completed that purchase, and I did that within 5 minutes. That again would be a 3rd discrete session where I did something on the app and I met the criteria for these rules. So if you're building a flow where you set these rules, users can generate multiple instances inside of a flow, and each one of those instances is a unique session, and they can have sessions where, like in my first one and second one, I dropped off, but in maybe my 3rd one, I actually went through the whole flow because maybe I landed on home page, found something, added it to cart and purchased before I had a 30-minute period of inactivity. So the best way to create just a high-level session where you want to gather some information around what is the average total time that users spend in their sessions, or what is the total number of events that users generate in their sessions, or what's the average number of sessions that users have in a given time period, you can create a session that just has one step here, because we're not necessarily saying they have to do a certain sequence of things. We're just saying give us users that began a session on any different type of event, and then I can set the global rules again around that session. Maybe I can say end the flow for a max total time of 1 week. So if I did that using my first example where I landed on home page and then I searched for something, walked away, and then a few hours later came back and added something to cart, and then 5 days later I went and purchased it, I would meet the criteria of this flow definition, because what I was looking for was, did the users do things inside of a 1 week time period? And so in this case, if I did that in 5 days, I met that criteria. Now, if I came back 8 days later and purchased, I would have dropped off from that session without actually purchasing. But in this case, we're not necessarily looking for a specific sequence of events. We're just looking for high-level descriptive information on the sessions that users are generating inside of my application. So just like in the flows video, you have to choose an actor, you have to name your flow, and then save it before you can begin doing some exploratory analysis. So just moving over here, here are some queries that I had already built out before the video, and they're looking at pretty valuable metrics around my user sessions and the things that they do inside of them. So in this case, I am counting the number of instances of my session. So how many sessions did I have in a given time period? In this case, 7 days ago to now. And in this one, I'm looking at how many users created those sessions. So we had 519,000 sessions generated by 140,000 users in this 7-day time period. Now, coming down to the third query, or third measure, you'll see that I'm using a different operator. I'm using this average operator, which you could just select from the menu, and you'll notice that what we're calculating changes from just actors and instances to, in this case, total time, total events, time between steps, time before reaching step, and reaching after reaching step. So in this case, I'm seeing what is the average total time in my flow, and we'll see that that is 39 minutes. So the average session lasts 39 minutes before there is a period of 30 minutes of inactivity. And if I move down to this next measure, I'm looking at what is the average total events inside of a session. Again, I'm using the average operator and I'm choosing total events, and it automatically calculates for me what is the average number of events per session that are generated in this flow. And so lastly, I'm generating this average number of users with a session. So with this, I'm using the calculating feature inside of Scuba. So here, if you haven't watched our videos on how to create calculations or use functions inside of Scuba, I highly recommend you go back and watch that video. But in this case, I am just dividing two of the measures that I already created, number of sessions and number of users with a session, and I am just dividing the two of them against each other to see that there is an average of sessions, 3 sessions per user. And I named this incorrect. It's the average number of sessions per user. So each user has an average of 3.6 sessions inside of this time range. Another really cool thing to note too is that once you narrow down on a metric that might be important to you, let's say we really care about this average of total time in session, but I want to look at that across different demographic regions. I can select that measure from chart options, and you'll see here I selected a bar view, and it's showing all of my sessions average 39 minutes. So that was the same as the number view. But now we have the ability to use our group by or split by feature. So this will be possible in visualizations that are using the time view, number view, Sankey, bar, and pie view. And so here I can switch this to region, for example. And in this case, it's the actor property of every distinct region. And if I press go, it will now return every single region and the respective average time. In this case, with this dummy data, they all spend about the same amount of time. And so you'll see those divided amongst those different regions inside of the United States.